Well, good evening. My name is Thorin Tritter. I'm delighted to welcome you to our Sunday with Survivor program with Holocaust survivor Rosalie Simon. I'm the Museum and Programming Director at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, which is located in Glen Cove, New York. Before we get our program going this evening, I want to let you know that we are recording it, and hopefully you'll be able to see it on our YouTube channel if you're not watching it live. If you would like to not be included on the recording, just simply turn off your camera during our program. I also want to let you know about some of our other upcoming programs. So if you don't mind a little advertisement, this coming Thursday, January 27th, the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County is joining with a number of regional Holocaust education centers to host a special virtual program for International Holocaust Remembrance Day that will include a discussion with Robert Williams, the Deputy Director for International Affairs at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., who's going to discuss how current conspiracy theories fuel anti-Semitism, both domestically and internationally, and why Holocaust education is such an important tool in combating that problem. I will be back for my next Curator's Corner, the short programs I do about individual objects and images in our collection, on February 2nd, when I will be kicking off our Black History Month programs with a discussion about a photo of Martin Luther King Jr. that we have in our museum. So I hope you'll join us for that. And then one more program to mention. On Thursday, February 17th, we'll be hosting a program with historian Michael Nyberg, who's going to draw from his recent book, When France Fell, as he shares information about the rise of Vichy France and how the Nazi takeover of France changed American thinking about the conflict in Europe. So to learn more about any of those programs or to see a full list of our upcoming schedule, you can go to our website at www.hmtcli.org and click on the events tab. Okay, enough with my announcements. Let me take that down. I would like to introduce you to the man who is behind our Sunday with Survivor programs, and that is Michael Mantell. Michael is a 3G. Two of his grandparents are survivors, and they instilled in him a belief in the importance of studying this history and keeping this history alive. At the end of 2020, more than a year ago, Michael came to the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County and said, he wanted to arrange a program with a survivor for his family. And what he started with that was actually a set of programs that we opened to the public and launched our Sunday with Survivor series. I am grateful for Michael's continued support and his family's continued involvement in our programs. And I am delighted to pass the camera and virtual stage to Michael for more of an introduction. Michael?
Thank you so much, Thorin. Thank you to you and to everyone at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center for everything that you do to make Sundays with Survivors and now 2G Tuesdays the success that they are. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today and those who are viewing the recording. And a very special thank you to all of the survivors, especially Rosalie Simon. Welcome to Sundays with Survivors. Sundays with Survivors is a virtual program that gives the opportunity to Holocaust survivors to share their testimonies with people all over the world. And with the success of our Sundays with Survivors program, we began 2G Tuesdays, a program that allows children of Holocaust survivors to share their parents' and family stories with all of us as well. Thursday, January 27th marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day on the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. On this day and every day, we honor all the victims of the Holocaust and support organizations such as the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center and educational programs that teach about the Holocaust and its lessons. Today, Rosalie Simon shares with us her testimony about her life in Czechoslovakia before the war, her deportation to Auschwitz, her selection by Dr. Mengele, and her various escapes from death, thanks to the kindness of strangers. At the end of today's program, we invite you to ask questions and share comments during the Q&A portion. Please raise your hands either virtually or your actual hand. And if we don't call on you, you may unmute yourself. You may also write your questions and comments in the chat, and Thorin and I can ask those questions for you. Before we begin, I'd like to ask everyone to please save the date and join us for our next Sundays with Survivors on Sunday, January 13th, when we will be joined by child survivor Renee Silver. I'd like to again thank everyone for being here, and now I would like to welcome Rosalie Simon.
Everyone.
Wait now, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Zoom. So I'm going to start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosalie Simon, and I'm a Holocaust survivor. I would like to briefly share with you about my experiences during those dark days in my life. Keep in mind that I was just 12 years old when I went through this hellish experience, and my world has turned upside down. It is difficult for me to speak about the past. The memories are still very painful. But I feel it is my obligation to carry on the message of the Holocaust. I was born in a little town in Czechoslovakia, the youngest of 6 children, 5 girls and a boy. At the age of 11, I was expelled from school and was forced to wear a yellow star to be identified as a Jewish person. The situation in my town started to get worse and worse. Jews were being beaten up on the streets by the Hungarian police for no reason at all. It was Passover of 1944 when we were ordered to pack up our most essential belongings and leave our homes. We had to gather in a certain area the next day. We each packed our own bags of clothes and family pictures. My mother baked some cookies and bread for the trip. We left our house in tears, leaving behind all of our life-saving possessions and wondering if we are ever coming back to see our home again. There are no words to describe the extent of the shock that my mother and father felt when they were forced to leave their house and property for which they had worked all their lives and go into the unknown with their 6 children. My family and I were deported to a ghetto in Hungary. The ghetto was overcrowded. There was no room for us to sleep. They took us to a cemetery where we slept on the ground, rain or shine, day and night. After a few days, we were placed in an attic with some other families. Living conditions there were most difficult, especially listening to the cries of the hungry little children. They did not provide any food for us. We only had the little bit of food that we brought from home. But at least we had a roof over our heads. I volunteered to occupy the children by reading storybooks to them that they brought from home. This helped them forget about their hunger, at least for a few minutes, and at the same time, it worked for me as well. One day, I went out for a walk within the ghetto streets without any destination in mind. I had no idea where I was going. I just wandered around. All of a sudden, I was stopped by a man. He took out a pair of scissors and started to cut all my hair off. I cried and screamed, but he would not stop until all my hair was cut off. I don't know why he did that. I was so upset. I did not want to be seen. I sat down under a tree and cried and cried. My mother found me, took me back to the attic, and tried to comfort me, saying, "Don't cry, my child. Your hair will grow back." Little did I know that in the very near future, everyone's hair is going to be cut off, and that will be the least of our problems. One day, we were taken to a train where cattle cars were waiting for us. They counted 80 people to one car. I happened to be the 81st person, and I was shoved into another car. I was 12 years old. Not only was I traumatized by the separation from my family, I depended on strangers to give me some food that they needed for their own children on this journey to the unknown. In my state of depression, all I remember is the silence of the people and the ongoing sound of the train moving farther and farther. It seemed like it lasted forever. The noise of the tracks and the whistle blowing of the engine still rings in my ears. It was like a cry for help, but no one listened and no one cared. Little did I know that for most of us, this was intended to be our last ride. The train finally stopped. They unlocked the doors and the screaming started by the SS guards. "Get out, fast." Everyone jumped out. I was reunited with my family. The first thing I noticed was a sign that said, "Arbeit macht frei." Work will set you free, making us believe that we are there to work. I also noticed flames coming out of the chimneys. I had no idea what I was or the meaning of it all. We had arrived to Birkenau, Auschwitz. It was total chaos. The selection started. Dogs were barking. Trucks were lined up for those people who were unable to walk. The SS guards were directing people to the right and to the left. Thousands of people, mothers with babies and young children, along with the elderly, were directed to go to the left. The young, healthy-looking men and women were ordered to go to the right. My mother was 45 years old. I was 12. According to the Nazis, neither of us were qualified for labor. She was considered old, and I was too young. We were both sent to the left. My 4 sisters, my father, and 13-year-old brother were ordered to go to the right. We had no idea what each direction indicated. As I was walking with my mother, holding her hand, I heard an announcement on the loudspeaker saying, "All those people going to the left are going to receive more bread." In my naive 12-year-old mind, I believed it. I was saddened by the separation from my sisters. We were always very close. I didn't know where they were going, and I wanted them to be together with my mother and me. Without saying anything to my mother, I made a quick decision to turn around and try to find my sisters and bring them back to reunite them with us. I found them, but we were surrounded by SS guards with guns and were not able to turn back. My mother must have been wondering, where did Rosalie go? Or perhaps, due to all the commotion and chaos, maybe she didn't even realize that I left. I'll never know. I was absolutely devastated for leaving her. Tragically, I never saw her again. I found out later that the announcement I heard over the loudspeaker was a big lie. Not only was there no bread, but all those people, mothers carrying the babies in their arms, and little children holding on to their mothers' skirts, along with trucks filled with people who got off the train and were unable to walk, were heading unknowingly straight to the gas chambers, thousands of them, including my mother. Upon arrival to the gas chamber, in order to avoid panic, they were told that this is a place where everyone is going to take showers. They were also instructed to get undressed quickly, put their clothes in order so they could find them on the way out from the showers. The line was long outside. Their system was to get rid of the people as fast as possible so they could push in the next transport who were unknowingly waiting for their turn to die. Since it was the first day of arrival to Auschwitz, they had no idea that gas chambers even existed. With all the guards around, they were again ordered to make it fast and get into the shower room. Once they were in, the door was locked and they were trapped inside. Instead of water, the poison gas was released. It is beyond imagination what went on inside once they started to suffocate and mothers watching their children gasping for their last breath. Till this day, there are still fingernail scratch marks and blood stains on the walls of the gas chambers, indicating the excruciating pain they suffered until they finally died. Besides the torture of my mother's death, at least she was spared the pain of watching me, her youngest child, choking to death. The Nazis had a certain time to leave the gas on. If anyone was still barely alive, the person or child was still shoved into the oven. I later learned that my 13-year-old innocent little brother, William, was also separated from my father and suffered the same fate in the gas chamber, having no family around him during his last moments of his life. It is now 77 years later. The memories of them and how they died remains an everlasting pain in my heart. However, as it turned out, my good intentions to get my sisters reunited with my mother saved my life for the time being. After I met up with my sisters, we were taken to a place where this time they shaved everybody's heads and pubic hair, poured disinfected all over our bodies, followed by real showers. They handed us the striped dresses, and then we were walking to our assigned barracks. The beds were made out of wooden boards, measuring about 6 by 6 feet, and 10 to 12 people were squeezed into one bed. It was raining that day. I was hungry and thirsty. I went out of the barrack and held my mouth open under the roof to get some water. All of a sudden, I felt a slap over my head. I turned around and asked this woman, "Why are you hitting me?" She gave me another slap and told me, "Here, you don't ask any questions. Do you understand?" I learned fast. Day and night, I witnessed the flames coming out of the chimneys. After being 2 days in Birkenau, Auschwitz, I asked someone, "What are those flames?" She said, "You don't know. This is where they burned your mother, your father, sisters, and brothers. This is where you are going to wind up soon." I realized at my young age what Auschwitz is all about. A killing place, a place called hell on earth, in every sense of the word. Our lives had no value. We were there to be killed. It was just a question of when. During the day, we were forced to stay outside of the barracks without food or water. I was weak. I lied down on the ground. I was so hungry. I remember thinking, if I ever survive this hell, all I wish for in my life is to have enough potatoes to eat. I would never ask for anything else. We were spread out like cattle waiting to be slaughtered. My lips were blistered from the hot sun. Each day of survival was a struggle. I accepted whatever will happen. As long as I had my sisters, I was not alone. One day, I heard selections will take place, and our barrack is going to be transported to Germany for labor. That was great news. Maybe I'll still have a chance to get out of Auschwitz alive, I thought. I was hopeful and scared at the same time. I was a small and skinny 12-year-old, and neither of those worked in my favor, for they were looking for young, healthy women for labor. Dr. Joseph Mengele showed up. He was the Birkenau Auschwitz doctor, and he decided who should live and who should die. We were ordered to get undressed, and one by one, we walked past him, totally naked. I tried to look healthy. I pinched my cheeks to make them have color. My sisters passed. Shaking with fear, I was approaching Dr. Mengele. He stopped me, put his hand on my shoulder, turned me around to look me over, and motioned to someone to take me away. That was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. My worst nightmare has come true. I was locked up in a room. I was sentenced to die, this horrible death in the gas chamber. I was of no use to the Nazis. He decided I was too young for hard labor. I knew that this is going to be my last day on this earth and I will never see tomorrow. Words cannot describe the panic and desperation I felt at that moment. I was separated from my sisters, and I'm facing the end of my life on my own. The only weapon I had to fight back with were my bitter tears dripping down on my thin, naked body. I was overcome with emotion. I became hysterical. I could not accept my fate. I was very well aware of what is going to happen to me that day. I will suffocate to death in the gas chamber, and they will shove me into the burning oven, and the only thing left of me will be my ashes. That was the most tragic death sentence to accept. I, this 12-year-old child, did not give up. I kept jumping up and down, frantically knocking and scratching on the window, sobbing and pleading. Don't leave me here. Somebody please let me out. I don't want to die. It was like the room was on fire, and I'm desperately trying to save myself and get out. I wanted to live, even under the worst circumstances. While fighting for my life inside that room, some things occurred outside of the room. My sister Charlotte, who was naked, followed by my other sisters, had the courage to approach this monster, Dr. Mengele, and begged him, "Doctor, please let my sister come with us. We are 5 sisters and we want to be together." He replied, "If you want to be together, you can all go with her, but she cannot go with you." Something else happened while the selections went on. Dr. Mengele separated a mother and her daughter, sending the daughter to be locked up with me. The mother couldn't bear the pain of seeing her child being taken to the gas chamber alone. She volunteered to sacrifice her life, go with her daughter, and die together. She joined her daughter in the room with me and other victims who silently accepted their fate. As a result of this, a miracle happened to me. A red-headed young Jewish woman who assisted Dr. Mengele to keep order had watched my desperate fight for life through a window. It touched her heart. She secretly opened the door for me and handed me a striped dress and told me to run. Run! An exchange had been made, my life for the mother who wanted to die with her child. The red-headed young woman put her own life in jeopardy by letting me out. I was running like a wild animal, scared and confused, totally naked, holding the dress in my hand and unaware which direction to take when I heard someone calling my name. There were watchtowers all along the way. Perhaps they were not occupied at the time, otherwise I surely would have been shot. My sisters noticed me running. They were already standing in line ready to leave. I was lucky again. Dr. Mengele didn't see me run. He was still busy with the selections. I joined up with my sisters and thought I was finally safe, until I saw Dr. Mengele starting to look us over again. This time we were lined up in rows of 5 and dressed. Dear God, not again, I thought. If he sees me this time, there is no way out for me. I was in a panic and shaking with fear. I lost hope of ever getting out of this hell alive, and will have to face this horrible death. I was sobbing uncontrollably all over again. Can you imagine my pain and desperation at the age of 12? My sister Lenka tried to comfort me. She said, Rosalie, don't cry. You will go to a place where they will give you more bread, and you will never be hungry again. I knew she was lying. I knew that I will go to a place where I won't live long enough to be hungry. Sobbing, I told her, I don't want any bread. I want to live. I want to go with you, my sisters. She spontaneously came up with an idea to smuggle me out of line and run to the train where women were already selected the second time and ready to leave. Lenka grabbed my hand, ready to go, but my sister Charlotte pushed her aside. She took my hand, and off we went running to the train. Thankfully, we made it. Charlotte risked her life to save mine. This was the most courageous act on her part. I will never, ever forget that day. A fight for my life as long as I live. I believe the way I carried on in that room where I was locked up also contributed to my survival. How was I so lucky to survive this monster, Dr. Mengele? Before getting on the train, we were given a piece of bread for the trip to Germany. I was so totally exhausted from the ordeal of the day. I didn't notice that I had lost this precious piece of bread, my lifeline to survival. This piece of bread was the only food we received during the trip to Germany. I didn't care anymore about my bread, as long as I'm out of this burning hell called Auschwitz. Again, my sisters came to the rescue and shared their bread with me. The fact that I was able to be saved and get out of Auschwitz was truly a miracle. Wherever we're going could never be worse, I thought. We arrived to a town called Geislingensteige. I worked in an ammunition factory from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I worked hard and produced the same as everyone else. I had a boss, a German civilian, a real human being. He had a daughter my age, and he tried to help me as much as he could. He called me by my name. Otherwise, I was known as inmate 20,629. He sometimes shared his bread with me and told me to rest for a few minutes while he was watching out for the SS guards. Thankfully, there were some righteous Gentiles who cared. He was one of them. Although there were no gas chambers in Geislingen, I remember during one of the roll calls, as we were lined up to be counted, which occurred early in the morning every single day, rain or shine. One of the SS guards noticed an enlarged belly on this beautiful young woman. Her name was Stemma. She was the wife of a rabbi. Assuming she was pregnant, he took her out of line and ordered a wheelbarrow to be brought in. She was told to get into the wheelbarrow, and like a bag of trash, she was wheeled out of the camp. A few minutes later, they brought the wheelbarrow back empty. She was shot because she was pregnant. I will always remember the sad expression on her face. She courageously accepted her death sentence. Little did she know that this happy occasion of having her first baby will be the cause of her death. The war was nearing to an end. The Germans were losing the war. We were transferred to another camp near Dachau, where they practically starved us to death. People were dying like flies. The piles of dead bodies grew bigger by the day. It was cold. We slept on the ground, huddled together to keep from freezing. I had very little strength left. One day, we were taken on a long march to a train. The train stopped in the middle of a field where we were liberated by the American Army. They informed us that ditches were already dug a short distance away for us to be shot and buried. The SS guards did not succeed in their plan to kill all of us. I was truly a miracle child destined to live. I feel blessed to be alive and carry on the message of the atrocity we have endured. We, the survivors, have reached our declining years, and now we are handing over to the young generation the legacy to keep the memory alive. We cannot let the world forget. My mission is to raise awareness and educate young people about our tragic past and what the Nazis have done to us. I'm the voice of my mother, Regina Lebovich, and my brother, William Lebovich. I am the voice of all the other 6 million innocent Jewish victims, among them 1.5 million children who have been silenced forever in the gas chambers through malnutrition, shootings, beatings, and starvation. Prejudice, bigotry, and hatred have not disappeared. Anti-Semitism still exists, not only in the pages of history, but currently in all parts of the world, even in the United States. The existence of Israel assures the future of Jews everywhere. Had Israel existed in the 30s and 40s, possibly there would have been no Holocaust. As long as we have a strong state of Israel, we can say and hope, never again. I pray that such evil as the Holocaust will never happen again against any people anywhere. I pray no one will ever experience the pain we have endured. I pray that future generations of all nations will live in peace with other religions. I pray that the world's children grow up in a world where there is no more bloodshed and murder. The pain of those dark times will never leave me, but I can proudly say I have survived and brought into this world a second generation and generations to follow. We must be vigilant so that the history of the Holocaust will never happen again. The lesson we must learn from the Holocaust: never be a silent bystander. We must fight against intolerance, hate, and prejudice towards all people, regardless of race, color, and religion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosalie. I really appreciate you sharing your testimony with us and giving us that message. Thank you. I know that
Welcome.
people have questions. I'm going to pass it over to Michael to open up the floor, and I encourage people, if they have questions, to either raise their hand or as Michael said, type it in the chat and then we can call on you. But Michael, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, thank you, Thorin, and Rosalie, thank you for that incredible and touching testimony. It is moving for me, not just as a human being and as a Jew, but there are so many things that sound like my grandmother's story. Elise Diamond, Alice Diamond, who was also a Levi. So just listening to your story just touched me, because I know that you have family here on the Zoom, and I just think it's incredible for them to be able to be here, like you said, generations, listening to you and then carrying your legacy forward. So thank you. Thank you for your family for being here, and thank you to everyone who is joining. I wanted to ask if, before we go into more questions probably about your experiences before and during Auschwitz, if you can speak a little bit about your life after liberation, what that was like. Did you go back home? What was that experience like, etc.?
Going back home to Czechoslovakia was a very, very sad experience. When I got to my town, there were so many children playing on the streets and all the homes, Jewish homes. When I got back, everything, all the homes were empty. There was nobody, there were no children. It was like a dead town. Nobody was around. So 3 of my sisters were there, and we couldn't get into our house because everything was demolished. They were keeping horses there, the nails were in the walls, and the oven was demolished. They were looking for valuables, I guess. So we couldn't get into the house even. So we settled in one of the Jewish homes. We took a room, and we stayed there in this one room, my sisters and I. The doors were open. Anybody could come in. Russian soldiers came in sometimes. They were drunk, and they were laughing. And my sister Rosie, I remember, took a stick, and she told them, "Get out of here." And they started to laugh, and they walked out, amazingly. So we were lucky they didn't touch us. So one day I went next door to another house where the pharmacist used to live. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Where the pharmacist used to live, and there was a bathtub. And I haven't taken a bath in a long time. So I let the water run into the tub. It was cold, but I didn't care. I just wanted to take a bath. While I was in the tub, a bunch of Russian soldiers came in again, and they were looking all over the house. I quickly went out of the tub and started to get dressed, closed the door, and I just stayed there. They looked around, but they never came. to the bathroom. Another miracle. They provided some food for us, but very little. So if we had to make something, we made a fire outside and cooked some food. But being in my town was only sad memories. We couldn't stay there. I remember my teacher's wife walked by, and I was standing in front of my house. And I know she knew me because I used to deliver messages from my teacher to his wife. So I was in her house many times. Well, when she saw me, she walked by. It's like she would see a ghost. She never came over to say, welcome, I'm glad to see you, what happened? Ignored me totally. So it seems like they still didn't want us there. So we had no room there. Anyway, we couldn't stay there anyway, whether they did or didn't. There was just sad memories in that town for us. So we decided to go back to Prague to meet up with my father. What happened is when we were on the way back from to Teresva, somebody told us, where are you going? We said, we're going home. Get off the train, your father is in Prague. He's in a hospital. So we got off the train and went to see my father. He was hardly recognizable. He must have weighed about 80, 85 pounds. His teeth were knocked out. He was skin and bone. We could hardly recognize him. So we stayed with him for a while, and we got an apartment. What happened is on the way to Prague, after we were in Teresva, Russian soldiers stopped us and asked for documents. We had no documents, we had no papers, we had nothing. So we said we were Holocaust survivors and told them what happened. We came to see our town, and now we have to go back to Prague to join up with my father. They didn't believe us, and they said, let's go. And they locked us up in jail. So we were locked up for overnight, and then they let us out. They realized that we are really Holocaust survivors, and they let us out. So we had to cross the Romanian border. We got to the border, and there was a small walkway, boards, which were about, I would say, 2-3 feet wide. And there was a sign, whoever is going to cross this bridge is going to be shot. So we had no choice. We waited and waited. There was nobody coming. So we crossed the bridge to Romania. And that was lucky too. So from Romania, we took a train and went back to Prague to join up with my father and the other sisters. And we stayed there for a while, and then we moved to another town because my sister was in a DP camp, and she settled in Ústí nad Labem. So we wanted to join her, and we went to live in Ústí nad Labem. And so my father couldn't go to work because he was too sick, and we all had a job. We went to work and supported my father. And we stayed in Ustí-nad-Labem, I would say, for about 3 years, 4 years. So, and then they were talking that the borders are going to be closed by the Russians, and we won't be able to get out. So in the meantime, my uncle, who has been in the United States since the 1920s, found out from the Red Cross that my father is alive. So he got in touch with us and he said he's going to send us a visa to come to the United States. And sure enough, he did that. He sent us a visa. And 1949, October, we got on a boat. Aquitania. The name of the boat was Aquitania. It was a rough ride. We were all throwing up. But we got here, luckily, and we stopped in Canada. What was the name of the town? Halifax. We stopped in Halifax, and from Halifax we went to New York. And from New York we went to Ustí-nad-Labem, where we lived for a few years. And then we came to the United States, and we started school, night school, to learn the English language. And that's where I met my husband. And my sister also met her husband, my sister Rosalie. They got married. They seemed to have loved each other. And I was not so sure. And my Sydney was my husband's name. We dated for 2 years, and then we got married. And my husband started to make a nice living, and we were okay. And what happened after? We got married. I had my first son was born in 1953, and he was born with eczema. And the doctor said that that did all kinds of. We went. In the meantime, we bought a farm in Pleasantville, New Jersey, a chicken farm, because of Sydney's father. He wanted to go to a farm where there's other survivors, and that was his wish. So eventually we moved as well to the chicken farm, and my son was still suffering from the eczema, and we went to a specialist, a skin doctor, and he told us that the salt air and the beach would be good for him. So my husband did very well in the metal business, but he left everything behind, and we moved to Atlantic City because of my son. And sure enough, the eczema healed very nicely. And then I had another child 3 years later, Ruthie. Mitchell was my firstborn. Ruthie was the girl. And then I had Billy 10 years later. And that's what happened. What else can I tell you?
Thank you.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The reason we're here now, my husband got sick about 3-4 years ago, he had Alzheimer's, and the children wanted us to come to New York to live around them. So we came and rented North Shore Towers, an apartment, and I was together with my son Mitchell and daughter Ruthie and the grandchildren and the whole family except for Billy. Billy got married and had 3 children. So and they got divorced, and so he stayed behind in Atlantic City to be around his children and be in their lives. So that's the story.
Thank you so much.
Then I was called we don't see each other very okay.
I think it's so important to
finished.
have that.
Yeah.
Finished.
Conversation. Okay. I think it's so important to have that information about a person's life before, during, and after. So I appreciate you sharing that. We have a question from Steve.
Hi, Rosalie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Were any of your fellow villagers or family members sent to Terezin?
Terezin, where any of your family
Jesus,
members sent to Terezin.
Sent to what?
Terezin.
No, we're not in Terezin. No, we were in Auschwitz, Geislingen, Allach Dachau. That's where we were in the 3 camps, but not Terezin.
Thank you.
Vivian, I think you had a question.
Thank you. I would first of all like to express my appreciation for Rosalie and giving us the gift of allowing us to witness for you. I was curious as to, were all of your sisters together when you came back to your hometown, and were all of your sisters on the boat with you when you came to this country?
Yes, they were all, actually, Lenka, one of my sisters, could not come to the United States, and she went to Canada instead.
She go to Israel first?
Yes, she went to Israel first, and she was very sick there. She had a baby that was born in Czechoslovakia, in Ústí-nad-Labem. The baby was 3 months old, and they moved to Israel. Times were very tough there. She wasn't well, and so they decided to go to Toronto, to Montreal first, and then they moved to Toronto. But the 4 of us were together, and one of my sisters got married and went to a DP camp, and then she came to Czechoslovakia, and then we were all together.
So 4 came over on the boat.
For Charlotte,
Did Charlotte come too?
I don't remember her. She was already married. I think she was in a DP camp, and then she came on a boat. I don't remember. It was 77 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
But we wound up together, all of us.
They were together, all 5 of them, the whole time in all 3 camps, which was a miracle in and of itself.
Yes.
And then they all came to either Canada or the United States. So
Yeah. First Israel she went, and then Canada,
yeah,
and that's where she remained, in Canada. But the rest of us were in the United States.
except for Helen. 2 remained in Canada.
Yeah.
And 3 in the United States.
But at the beginning, she was in the United States.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else I can
Yeah,
answer you?
I think my father, Edward Mantell, had a question, and then Marilyn. Dad, we can't hear you.
Rosalie, I want to thank you. It was an amazing journey you took me on. I had tears running down when I listened to you. You know, I listened to you, and I always, whenever my son has these, I always say the same story when my mother used to tell me when she got to the camps. And she said the Polish girls who were immune already, they said, you see the smoke over there? That's your parents. That's the way she
Yeah.
was greeted. That's the way they greeted
Yeah.
my mother. You know, that's what they told her. The same thing. She was with Mengele. She was sent to the right side, thank God. You know, but and I listened to you. I'm sorry that I'm taking a little time. Is it all right? You know, I listened to you, and my mother also. She was in a factory also, and when the Americans were bombing, the commandant told the girls, please, girls, don't go out of the barracks because they were protected there because they wouldn't bomb the barracks. And a few girls ran out and they were killed. And he was crying. My mother said he was crying. He said, girls, I begged you not to go out. I begged you. And,
The
you
commandant.
know, the same story. Sorry?
The commandant was crying?
The commandant was crying, yes. He said to the girls, please don't go out, you know. I want to thank you. It was an unbelievable journey you took us on. Thank you. Thank you.
So why did they go out, Walden?
They didn't know. They wanted
They were,
to, yeah.
they were bombing the area. The Americans were bombing already. They ran out. You know, they were scared.
Yeah.
We happened to be in a field when the bombs fell. But I wasn't scared of the bombs. There was a farm with carrots. I stuffed myself with carrots and I didn't care about the bombs. So your parents were Holocaust survivors?
Yes. And I listened to you about your father. My father was, when he got home, he was in his 70s, and also he was missing his teeth because a soldier hit him with the barrel of the gun. And he knocked out his teeth, you know, same thing. You know, I listen to you and I'm reliving, you know, I live with you, you know? Thank you.
My husband was in the partisans too.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Yes, he was in the ghetto and he escaped the ghetto and joined the partisans and Belarus.
Yes. Yeah, thank God you're here today.
Actually, he survived. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question and bringing it up, Dad. I always say there are so many similarities between these stories, yet there's differences. So it's incredible to hear that. I think Marilyn had a question, and then also Shepard, I believe.
Marilyn, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Maybe, do we lose her?
Trying to find Marilyn's question. In the meantime, Shepard, if you'd like to ask your question, you can unmute.
Hi, I was just wondering how old you were when you arrived to the United States.
Say it again. Yeah.
I was 18 years old.
Okay, I just want to know how long this journey took.
Yeah.
From
Czechoslovakia. Yeah.
I don't remember how many days.
Well, you were in the camps for a year, right?
Yeah, but how long did the journey take from Europe to the United States?
Yeah, I think she was talking about metaphorically, like how from when you were in the camps until you got to the United States, how long that took.
Okay.
Right.
We were liberated May of 1945, and we came to the United States at the end of 1949.
5 years. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to remind everybody, if you have a question, you can raise your hand with a virtual hand emoji. I can't see everyone because, thank God, we have a full house. I believe Alex Constantine has a question. I'm so happy to see you and Susan here. So I'll let you guys speak.
Okay.
My wife likes to keep me on the mute all the time. First of all, I would like to personally thank you, Rosalie, on your moving and harrowing story. You mentioned several times, and this is more in a way of a comment than a question. You mentioned some Russian soldiers. I have a totally, completely different view of them by virtue of the soldiers that we met. They behaved themselves very gentlemanly way and very unthreatening way. And for instance, after the war, I got lost. So my mother saved me all this war. She went through the turmoil of the war and to save me. And then I get lost in a large city like Lodz. And the Russians gave her all the help that they had. And I am personally very grateful to them, despite what went on in the Ukraine. That's it.
Rosalie, I just have to unmute.
Okay, go ahead.
They didn't touch us, even though we were two young girls in the room, but they didn't touch us.
Thank God.
We were just scared, but they didn't do anything bad. So we didn't know. That's why my sister said to get out of the room, because we didn't know. But they didn't. They did get out of the room, and my husband, who was in the partisans, also had he was in the army as well. He was in the Russian army. And he had nothing but good things to say about friends that he had over there. So I'm not saying anything bad about the Russians. And everybody had different experiences, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't have any bad experience, except they took us to jail, but because they didn't believe us that were Holocaust survivors. But they let us out.
Michael, I think Marilyn
So-
is back. Maybe she can pose.
Oh,
a-
wonderful. Yes, and before I call on Marilyn, I just want to say Alex was one of our first Sundays with Survivors speakers, so I'm just so grateful to see you here. Marilyn, if
I am Aunt Rosalie's niece, and I have to tell you, I'm blessed to have her as an aunt. She is the most beautiful, respectful, intelligent lady that I've ever met in my life. And I'm so thankful that I have her in my life. I love you.
Thank you, Marilyn. I love you too. I love you. Thank you for the nice word. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. Barbara has a question. Barbara, you just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. We hear it all the time, but yours was very emotional. Thank you. I have a question. With all your traveling, how were you able to go from one place to the other without any papers?
It was accepted that the Holocaust survivors had no papers because they took everything away from us. So everybody knew we had no documents. We had no money. We could go anywhere we wanted to without any documents, without any money.
And even
So it was
on a boat, you were able to get on the boat without any papers.
Well, we had no money, so maybe my uncle paid for the boat. Yeah, maybe he did. because we had no money.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I believe next Greta, and then I see Judy has her hand. So Greta and then Judy, please.
Hi, thank you for sharing your story, because like the emotion and all the details you have definitely like, gave more of a perspective and helped me learn more about the Holocaust, what happened, afterwards with you and your sisters and all that. I was wondering, when you came to the US, and then if you want for your sisters that went to Canada, like how did people generally treat you?
Just have to.
In the United States, she asked, I just unmuted her.
Yeah, like in the United States, and then if you know about how your
Yeah.
Well, in the United States, it was like the greenhorns. They showed me, this is the light and this is electricity. It's like we came from the wilderness. But we knew all that, but it's okay. Let them teach us. And my uncle was very nice to us. He went to buy food for us, and we were treated okay.
How old are you? I'm asking you,
Judy.
Judy. How old are, no, I don't think
That
it's
was
Judy.
Greta.
It is Judy.
I'm
Greta,
25.
yeah. How old are you?
25.
25. Okay. Thought you were a teenager.
Me too.
Judy, and then Renee question. Sorry, Judy, you'll just have to unmute.
Hi, Judy. Again.
Judy, you have to unmute. We can't hear a word you're saying.
Judy is unmute, but it's hard to hear. It's very low.
Let me, is that any better?
No.
It was a little better.
I'll try and speak as loud as I can. Is that better?
Yes. Yeah.
My name is Mengele. My mother, Charlotte Weiss, was one of the 5 sisters that survived with my beautiful Aunt Rosalie. Unfortunately, she's not here anymore to tell her story. But I did want to say that growing up as a child with 5 strong women was such, as difficult as it was, it did have its moments for being a child of the Holocaust. It became different. We were raised differently from our friends. We in turn are raising our own children differently from our friends. But I was afraid because these 5 women, we called them the Ghetto sisters, were a total and remain a total inspiration in my life. And tonight is especially wonderful for me to see my beautiful aunt continuing to try and educate the world so that no one ever forgets. And I'm very grateful to her. And I'm very grateful to all the other aunts who experienced this with her, because it's been an inspiration in my whole life and all of the cousins' lives.
Judy, we were able to hear you perfectly now.
Okay, the last thing that I want to say is that my Aunt Rosalie and her 4 sisters lived their lives trying to survive for one another. And the closeness that remained throughout their lives as a result of their experience was passed on to their children. And in that way, my cousins, my aunt's children, are like sisters and brothers to me. And we remain close, and closeness is very important to all of us as a result of all this.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. I was able to hear at the beginning, I'm not sure if everyone did, but you were saying that Rosalie is your aunt and your mother is one of the 5 sisters, and that being raised by these 5 beautiful, strong women was an inspiration to you, and to be able to pass that down to other generations. Just in case everyone couldn't hear, I just wanted to repeat it. But that is remarkable. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Rosalie, if you wanted to share anything before I call on the next person.
No, he didn't hear. They didn't hear when you said thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judy. And for explaining, because we couldn't hear her so well.
No worries. And then Eva has a question.
Oh.
Eva, you'll just have to unmute.
Oh.
I can hear Marilyn, but I can't.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so it was. So I'm here together with Rosemarie from Geislingen in Germany. It's in the middle of the night now, but we feel honored to be part of this Zoom meeting, and especially to get to know so many of your nieces and your relatives and all your other sisters, Rosalie. And I would like to tell you and your whole family, your extended family, and maybe even it's important for everybody else listening, that there's a group of people in Geislingen who honors all you women that had to do forced labor at WMF in Geislingen. And one of our main focuses is to keep the memory alive and to educate the students. We go to schools, and we have a website, and we just want to let you know that all of what you experienced, and yeah, you will not be forgotten, and we do everything we can so that things like that don't happen again. We try to fight anti-Semitism with all what we can do. And we just wanted to let you know the support from this city of Geislingen.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for the nice words. And I believe that you mean it, and it's gonna come true. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to fight anti-Semitism.
Yes, especially in Germany, and it's I don't have words for what's going on now. It's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. But with people like you, we will just keep fighting. So, and keep educating, and hopefully we will reach enough people that they will learn, and we will win in that way. So I thank you also as my mother's daughter. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's the least we can do.
Thank you, Eva. I think that's one of the most amazing things about being on Zoom, being able to have everyone join.
That's right.
I believe we have just 2 more people, and then we're going to start to wrap up. I see Renee had a question before, and then I see Herbert, if he can speak after, and then we're going to wrap up the program.
Hi, Rochel. It's actually Fred. I'm right with Renee right now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Such vulnerability and tenuousness of life is just impossible to understand. But, you know, I guess I wondered how you've been able to not let hatred take you over.
You know, Fred, you have to live your life. You can't hate. There's all kinds of people in this world, and I hate the Nazis. I mean, what they did to us. But there were some good people like Eva. Eva is from Germany. She was a good person. She is a good person. But what the Nazis did, they followed this monster Hitler, and that was wrong. And can't hate everybody all the time. So you do what you can. The least I can do is speak out and let the world know what happened to us and what we went through, so the world should know, especially the young people. And I hope it never happens again. That's all.
To anybody.
To anybody, nowhere.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Herbert and then Danielle, it seems like we have more questions. So if everyone doesn't mind staying, Rosalie, if you don't mind, we'll have those questions.
Okay,
Herbert and then Danielle.
My name, hello.
Go ahead, Herbert.
Just have to unmute Herbert.
Okay, hello. My name is Herbert Cooper. I first want to thank Rosalie Simon to tell us only a little bit of the terrible thing that you underwent. I myself was born in Vienna, Austria. However, I was one of the lucky ones. I was one of the lucky ones because my father's brother lived in the United States for quite a few years before Hitler came, and he brought over 12 people in the family and outside the family to come to the United States and survived. I left Austria when I was 12 years old, and I arrived in New York in 1939. So you can figure out how old I am. And I somehow got involved with the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, and I've been doing things like I see some of the other people are doing now. Although I did not survive with the terrible things that you tell about, I'm alive. And there are quite a few people alive. And there's also many people who don't come from, who are not Holocaust survivors. And it's those people that we need in a place like the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center to tell the rest of the population, especially the young people, that the things that Rosalie Simon tells us are true, but they only a little bit of the real story of what really happened. I mean, and the anti-Semitism looks like it's getting stronger here than not only here in the whole world than it was before. And what we need is people like Rosalie Simon to tell us what's going on, what went on, and what has happened, and to be able to educate, to help educate the present student population so that they can pass on what has happened, and also to help minimize the problems that we're hearing about anti-Semitism, and even more than anti-Semitism, people like the recent attack on the synagogue, which turned out to be luckily much better than it could have been, and also about the other recent the Word of Life synagogue, where I believe 12 people were killed. So one of the things that we are all required and should do is tell the rest of the world what really has happened and what can be done to help. And things can be done. As I told you, the reason I'm alive and is because someone, my father's brother, brought over 12 people. That's almost unbelievable, the effort that was done and to help. So I think there are people, although I was involved and still involved with the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, we need more people, even more people than we are here to help a program of this kind to not to advertise, but to show what really happened and what can happen. And I just like to thank you again for coming here and sharing your story.
Well, my goal is to raise awareness. So I will speak up as long as I can, and especially to the next generation, to the young generation. They have to know. I mean, that's my goal, to speak up and raise awareness of what happened to us. So I am determined to do that.
What you're doing is so important, because what we're seeing in our world today, with the Charlottesville March, with the tiki torches, with people chanting, "The Jews will not replace us," with the attack on the Capitol on January 6th,
Yeah.
with people who wore Auschwitz t-shirts and who label themselves as white supremacists, but we know that stands for Nazis. And what happened in the temple recently, and so many other temples. It's happening not just in one temple, but all over. There are Holocaust deniers, and there are people who just have no knowledge of the history. So what you're doing is so important to not only make people aware, but to really live the never forget and never again. So thank you so much for the courage to live through that story all over again for us.
Well, thank you for responding. I plan to continue doing that as long as I can.
Thank you so much, Herbert and Judy and Rosalie. I'm just going to have Danielle ask her question, and then Thorin will wrap us up for the evening.
Okay.
Who is the last question, Michael?
I believe Danielle. Oh, there's Danielle. Perfect. Just need, we still can't hear you, Danielle. Still, yeah, unfortunately. You want to type in your question? If you want to type in your question, I can ask it for you. While you do that, I do want to, again, just thank everyone for being here. Rosalie and her family, it's so beautiful to just see family here. I want to thank everyone who's been to Sundays with Survivors before, and all the new faces that we're seeing. We had over 100 people at one point, so it's so incredible. We're doing the work that Rosalie was talking about, the important work that the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center does every single day. I want to remind everybody that you can visit their website, hmtcli.org, to find out more information about the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, their educational programs, and also if you'd like to donate. Just going to give Danielle one more minute or one more moment. It won't be that long, just to write her question.
Turn up your volume.
I'm not sure if it's a volume thing, but we are a patient crowd. Is that a thumbs up, Danielle, that you are able to? I'm going to ask if anyone has a question in the meantime.
Hi, Dan.
Oh, great. Danielle is calling Renee. That's awesome.
That's my daughter, and
I love it.
Rosalie is our aunt. And I
Beautiful.
think that I know what my daughter wants to talk about.
You want to put it on speaker? Maybe we can hear Danielle that way.
Oh, okay. Go, Dan.
Love it.
Hi, Aunt
Can you hear it?
Hi, Aunt Rochel.
Go ahead now.
So actually, I'm well, you know who I am now. So I'm asking this question on behalf of my friend who is watching right now, but doesn't have a video. And she and I met in the We Do class, which is where you learn how to tell your family's story. So when I learned how to tell my family's story, I met this woman named Megan. And Megan is on this call without video right now. And she's currently in the process of making a documentary, which will hopefully be a dissertation on the concept of never again. And she would like to know what never again means to you.
Never again. Hoping that what happened in the 1940s will never happen again. Never again. That's what we're hoping. So it's never going to happen again. That's what it means to me. Hopefully it'll never happen again, because people are aware now. They had a lesson from the Nazi regime, what can happen, and they're more knowledgeable when things like that get started, and to stop it right then and there, however they can. So I don't think that they're going to burn the people anymore in the crematoriums. I don't think so. Hopefully not. What happened then was something that it's just awful, unspeakable, awful. How could people do that to other people, human beings? And the world didn't do anything. They just stood by and let us be killed. And that's terrible. So hopefully it never again. That's my answer.
Beautiful answer. I think that was well worth the wait.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you who were watching tonight, the family members and the rest of you for sharing your time with us. Rosalie, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story and sending us this message that you take to heart. And Michael, thank you for being such a kind host. And I look forward to seeing all of you at other programs soon, and wish you a good evening. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining the Zoom. Thank you. Okay. Good night.